Was Elvis too hot for radio? Did the king of rock and roll have songs deemed too controversial for the public? While Elvis Presley remains one of the most celebrated musicians of all time, not all of his tracks received equal airtime or album placement. Some were considered too suggestive, others politically problematic, and a few simply failed to meet the standards of his record label. The story behind these censored or shelved Elvis tracks reveals much about American cultural values during the rock and roll revolution. Number 8. One Night of Sin, original version. Have you ever heard lyrics so scandalous they needed a complete rewrite? In 1957, Elvis recorded a cover of Smiley Lewis's blues number, One Night of Sin, but radio stations and his record label wouldn't touch it. The original lyrics were considered far too explicit for mainstream audiences in the conservative 1950s. The opening line, "One night of sin is what I'm now paying for," followed by references to lovemaking, were deemed inappropriate for the clean-cut image Elvis's management wanted to maintain. Colonel Tom Parker, Elvis's infamous manager, knew the song had potential, but realized it would never get airplay with those lyrics the solution. Rewrite the track entirely. The revised version, simply titled One Night, transformed the song from a tale of sexual regret to a slightly tamer plea for romantic reconciliation. The new opening line became, "One night with you is what I'm now praying for." This sonited version was released in 1958 and became a major hit, reaching pound 4 on the Billboard Hot 100. Interestingly, the original One Night of Sin recording wasn't officially released until 1983, 5 years after Elvis's death. When modern audiences finally heard the forbidden version, many were surprised at how tame it seemed by contemporary standards. What was scandalous in 1957 barely raised eyebrows in the 1980s, illustrating how dramatically standards of acceptable content had shifted in American popular culture over those decades. Number 7. Let Me Be Your Teddy Bear. Live version from The Milton Berle Show. Did a stuffed animal reference really cause a national controversy? When Elvis performed Let Me Be Your Teddy Bear on The Milton Berle Show in June 1956, it wasn't the lyrics that got the song pulled from some radio polls. It was his performance style. During this infamous television appearance, Elvis abandoned his guitar and performed the full song standing up, allowing him to gyrate and move his hips in ways that shocked 1950s viewers. The performance sparked immediate outrage from religious groups and conservative commentators. One Catholic priest compared Elvis's movements to a striptease with clothes on. The controversy was so intense that when Elvis appeared on The Ed Sullivan Show months later, cameras were famously instructed to film him only from the waist up during certain songs. While the studio recording of Teddy Bear became a massive hit, several radio stations refused to play any Elvis songs for a period following the Berle Show performance, effectively creating a temporary ban on this version of the track. NBC received thousands of angry letters about the performance, with viewers calling it vulgar and obscene. This controversy highlighted the generational divide in 1950s America. While parents and religious leaders were scandalized, teenagers were electrified. Record sales soared, despite, or perhaps because of, the controversy. Elvis himself seemed bewildered by the reaction, later commenting, "I don't do no dirty body movements." The Milton Berle Show incident demonstrated how even innocuous lyrics could become controversial when paired with Elvis's revolutionary performance style. Number 6. Baby, Let's Play House. Original recording. Could changing one word really save a song from being banned? Elvis's 1955 recording of Baby, Let's Play House featured a lyric change from the original Arthur Gunter version that raised eyebrows among conservative radio programmers. Elvis altered the line, "You may get religion too. You may have a pink Cadillac," which some interpreted as mocking religion. In the deeply religious American South of the 1950s, any perceived disrespect toward Christianity could lead to serious consequences. Some religious radio stations refused to play the modified version, considering it sacrilegious. The controversy was amplified by concerns already brewing about rock and roll's immoral influence on American youth. Beyond the religious controversy, the song's overall theme troubled some critics. The lyrics describe a man pleading with a woman who has left him, with possessive lines like, "I'd rather see you dead, little girl, than to be with another man." Such sentiments, while common in blues and early rock lyrics, struck some as promoting unhealthy relationships at a time when domestic dynamics were rarely questioned in mainstream media. Despite these concerns, Baby, Let's Play House became Elvis's first entry on Billboard's country charts. The controversy didn't prevent RCA Victor from later re-releasing the song, though some radio stations continued to avoid it. The pink Cadillac reference later became an iconic part of Elvis lore, with his actual pink Cadillac now on permanent display at Graceland, showing how contested elements of Elvis's career often became celebrated aspects of his legacy. Number 5. A cane and a high-starched collar. Sun Sessions outtake. Did Elvis record a song that was too racially charged for 1950s America? During his early sessions at Sun Records, Elvis recorded a partial take of A Cane and a High-Starched Collar, a song that contained dated racial stereotypes common in early 20th century music. Sam Phillips, owner of Sun Records, immediately recognized the potential problems and stopped the recording session. The song, which painted a caricatured picture of African American life that would be considered highly offensive today, never made it past this initial attempt. Phillips, despite his business acumen, understood that releasing such material could damage Elvis's career prospects and the reputation of Sun Records. The incomplete recording was shelved and largely forgotten, until archivists discovered it decades later. What makes this incident particularly notable is the complex racial dynamics surrounding Elvis's early career. Elvis was frequently criticized for appropriating black music styles, yet this incident showed at least some awareness of boundaries around racial content. Music historian Peter Guralnick noted that while Elvis absorbed musical influences from black artists, there were still cultural lines his producers were unwilling to cross in terms of lyrical content. The unfinished recording has never been officially released on any Elvis compilation, although bootleg recordings have circulated among collectors. RCA, which acquired Elvis's Sun Records catalog, has consistently opted to keep this track in the vaults, recognizing that its historical interest doesn't outweigh its problematic content. The song remains one of the few Elvis performances intentionally kept from the public on ethical rather than quality grounds. Number 4. Wooden Heart, U.S. album. Exclusion. Can a song be too European for American audiences? Elvis's Wooden Heart presents a curious case of a track deliberately excluded from American albums, despite massive international success. recorded for Elvis's 1960 film G.I. Blues. The song featured Elvis singing partly in German, incorporating the traditional German folk song Muss I denn zum Stadele Hinaus, while Wooden Heart was included on the soundtrack album released in Europe and became a #1 hit in the UK for 6 weeks. Elvis's American record company RCA Victor made the strategic decision to exclude the track from the US version of the album. Executive believed American audiences wouldn't embrace a song partially performed in a foreign language, especially German, given lingering post-World War II sentiments. This decision proved commercially short-sighted. When British singer Joe Dowell covered the song in a fully English version in 1961, it shot to #1 on the US Billboard Hot 100. Realizing their mistake, RCA finally released Elvis's original version as a single in the US in 1964, but by then the momentum was lost. The song peaked at a disappointing #108 on the Billboard charts. The Wooden Heart situation revealed the cultural conservatism of American record executives who underestimated audience openness to material content. Elvis himself had shown artistic courage by recording in German, phonetically embracing the international aspects of his growing fame while stationed in Germany during his military service. This track's complicated history demonstrates how corporate decisions, rather than censorship or controversy, sometimes kept Elvis's work from his American fans. Number 3. Too Much Monkey Business. Unreleased cover. What happened when Elvis covered Chuck Berry? During his legendary 1968 comeback special, Elvis performed a raucous version of Chuck Berry's Too Much Monkey Business that electrified the studio audience. The performance captured Elvis at his most raw and energetic, channeling his early rock and roll roots. However, when the TV special aired and the soundtrack album was released, this performance was nowhere to be found. NBC executives and Elvis's management made the decision to cut the Chuck Berry cover from the broadcast and album. While no official reason was given, music historians have speculated about several possibilities. Some believe it was cut for time constraints in the broadcast. Others suggest more complex reasons involving music publishing rights, as Berry was known for strictly controlling his compositions. A more interesting theory involves the song's lyrics, which describe frustrations with modern life, including dealing with employment, the telephone company, and working conditions. In the politically charged atmosphere of 1968, with labor strikes and civil unrest occurring across America, network executives may have been wary of content that could be interpreted as anti-establishment. The unreleased performance remained in NBC's vaults until 1998, when it was finally included in the 30th anniversary reissue of the Comeback Special. When modern audiences finally experienced this lost Elvis performance, many critics noted it showed a side of Elvis rarely seen in his later career, politically charged, edgy, and connected to his rock and roll roots. The belated release of this track helped reshape perceptions of late career, Elvis suggesting he remained more artistically vital than his mainstream image sometimes suggested. Number 2. It Hurts Me. Radio play limitation. Can a song be too emotional for radio? Elvis's 1964 recording, It Hurts Me, is considered by many Elvis aficionados to be one of his finest vocal performances, featuring a raw, emotional delivery rarely matched in his catalog. However, despite its quality, the song received limited radio airplay and was relegated to a B-side position behind the movie tie-in song Kissin' Cousins. The reason wasn't explicit content or controversy, but rather the song's intense emotional qualities. By 1964, Top 40, radio had developed increasingly standardized programming formulas, favoring upbeat, catchy songs with clear commercial appeal. It Hurts Me, with its dramatic vocal performance and heart-wrenching lyrics about unrequited love, didn't fit neatly into these radio formats. Colonel Parker had pushed for the lighter, Kissin' Cousins, to receive promotional priority, believing it better aligned with Elvis's movie image. When radio programmers received the single, they followed the label's lead and predominantly played the A-side. Those who gave It Hurts Me a chance found it didn't match the bright, cheerful sound dominating radio at the time. Elvis himself reportedly considered It Hurts Me among his personal favorites, and he continued performing it in concerts throughout his career. Music critics later identified the song as evidence that Elvis remained capable of remarkable artistry even during his much-maligned movie years. The limited radio exposure for this track represents not censorship but commercial calculation that potentially deprived audiences of experiencing one of Elvis's most powerful performances. Number 1. In the Ghetto, Southern Radio Ban. Can singing about poverty be too political? Elvis's 1969 hit In the Ghetto marked a significant departure for the singer, addressing issues of poverty, inequality, and the cycle of violence in American inner cities. While the song reached #3 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart, it faced resistance from radio stations in parts of the American South, with some refusing to play it altogether. Written by Mac Davis, In the Ghetto tells the story of a boy born into poverty in Chicago who eventually turns to crime and is killed, leaving behind another child who will likely face the same fate. The song's sympathetic portrayal of inner-city struggles and implied critique of societal neglect struck some conservative programmers as inappropriately political for Elvis, who had rarely addressed social issues in his music. Several Southern radio stations deemed the content too controversial, particularly during a period of racial tension following the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. the previous year. Station managers worried the song's urban poverty narrative might inflame racial divides in their communities. Some religious stations objected to the song's fatalistic worldview, which they felt lacked a redemptive message. Colonel Parker had initially advised against recording such politically charged material, fearing it might alienate Elvis's core audience. Elvis overruled him, drawn to the song's powerful storytelling. The controversy ultimately benefited the track, as the discussion about its message helped it reach audiences who might otherwise not have heard it. In the Ghetto represented a mature artistic statement from Elvis during his creative resurgence of the late 1960s. Its limited radio play in certain regions highlighted the tensions between artistic expression and commercial considerations that characterized Elvis's career. The song has since become recognized as one of his most important recordings, proving that artistic risk-taking, even when initially resisted, can cement an artist's legacy. Did censorship and controversy ultimately help or hurt Elvis's career? How might music history have been different if these songs had received fuller exposure? As with so much about Elvis Presley, the answers remain complicated, revealing tensions between artistry, commerce, and America's evolving social values that continue to resonate in popular music today.